The Leafs have finally exercised their first round demons as they are off to round number 2. Hey everyone, welcome into another SUN Sports Roundtable. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Sports columnist Steve Simmons and Toronto Sun Maple Leafs writer Terry Koshan. And guys, the Leafs are finally headed to the second round for the first time since 2004. It seemingly was a collective effort, Steve, but if you could single out maybe one person, who do you think deserves the most credit for ending the drought?
I'm going to go with Sheldon Keefe, the coach. And the reason for that is you're coaching against John Cooper, and you're coaching against the best in the business and the smartest in the business and maybe the best in the world. And you have to put together your lineup to face and to knock off a team that had been to the Stanley Cup final 3 years in a row and 2 years have won it. And I think at the end, he made the right decisions. He made the right calls, and the players performed to the areas in which he put them in. And so, yeah, I think that's a coach doing his job at the best. And I don't think there was a single player other than maybe Samsonov in the final game who was the complete difference maker from game 1 to game 6.
I would go with the goalie. I think Steve's right on Keefe, though. I like what Keefe did through the series for the most part, but Samsonov had the pressure on him going in, not only going in and face that Tampa lineup, but also beat Andrei Vasilevsky. And I get that it's a team effort and everything, but he did that, and he was the better goalie in the series. And I think I go that way in net because he's given the Leafs confidence from that position that they haven't necessarily had in recent years, no matter what they'll tell you, because he's better than Freddie Anderson was in pressure situations and better than Jack Campbell was. So I just like the way that he played. I think if there are any questions, not that there should have been, about him going into that first round, he's put them aside. And I think, he's going to be the better goalie against Florida than, whether it's Bobrovsky or Lyon in goal for the Panthers. I think he'll be the better one.
Well, it's funny because he starts the series letting in 7 in game 1. And that's the kind of thing that could crush some goalies. Some guys may never recover from that. And if Matt Murray had been healthy, he might have played game 2. Like, that's the way things had shaped up. But he let in the 7. He recovered from that. And then I thought in game 6 was far and away his best game. And you know what? You're supposed to be the best when it matters the most. And he was.
So I think everyone was expecting the Boston Bruins to be the opponent in round number 2, Terry, but that will not be the case. It is the Florida Panthers who pull off the ultimate upset, moving on to the second round to be the Leafs' opponent, another Florida team. So the Maple Leafs, I imagine, will be ready for this type of travel yet again. But what do you expect from this series between these two foes that have had some pretty exciting battles over the last couple of years?
Well, I think it'll probably go 6 or 7 games. I would expect the Maple Leafs to win it. I think they should be the favorite going in. I know that the Panthers have just pulled off one of the biggest upsets in NHL history, if not the biggest, but the Leafs are a better hockey team. They're better through the regular season, and we all say that doesn't matter, but it did help them build to what they did in the first round. I just like the way they're constructed. Like I've kind of mentioned, there are still some question marks surrounding the Panthers' goaltending. It's not to take the Panthers out of this. Steve mentioned earlier about the job Sheldon Keefe did. Paul Maurice will be no less a challenge to coach against than John Cooper was in the first round. But listen, there's no pressure on the Leafs. Well, there's pressure on the Leafs. There always is. It's not the same as it was 2 weeks ago. And I think with that off their back, the monkey, as Austin Matthews called it, I think that'll help put them in good stead in the second round.
To me, it's going to come down to what do you do with Matthew Tkachuk? And how do you stop him? It's a completely different challenge than they faced in the first round because he is a game disruptor. He is a game-changing player by himself. If you look at all the players in the NHL who don't play for the Edmonton Oilers, he's the leading scorer in the NHL over the past 2 seasons. And it's not just that he scores. It's how he scores. It's what he does. He's in the middle of everything Florida does. The Leafs are going to have to figure out who's going to play against him, how are they going to match up against him. And I go back to Sheldon now and probably Paul Maurice. These are 2 pretty darn good hockey coaches. How are they going to get Tkachuk away from whatever the Leafs are trying to do against him? And how are the Leafs going to match up? Because he is a handful. And I don't think there was anybody that did MVP voting this year in the NHL that didn't have him in their top 3.
I had him on third on my ballot after McDavid and Pasternak, but perhaps after that series I should have flipped them. Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be a handful. There's no doubt. There is no star in the National Hockey League that agitates as well as Matthew Tkachuk does. But having said that, the Panthers are going into saying, okay, we have to worry about Austin Matthews. We have to worry about Mitch Marner and potentially a William Nylander who didn't do a heck of a lot in the first round and might be on the at the cusp of getting going here. So lots to consider in that way. But I'm fascinated to see what happens with Tkachuk, Steve. I mean, this guy, I think you just described him to a T. He plays the game like no one else in the National Hockey League. It's not to take anything away from the other superstars in the league, but no one plays the physical, get into your skin manner that this guy does and puts up 100 points like he does. So I think it's sorry. I just think it's going to be a real theme in the series. But again, one that I think the Leafs are constructed to overcome.
All you have to do is look at the way the Panthers played in the playoffs last year, soft and easy. Look at how they played against the Bruins